Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everyone. Happy International Day of Pink. Today we wear pink to stand up to bullying and support those facing discrimination. If you feel alone, if you're anxious or scared, know that we're here with you today and every day. Now I want to begin this morning by addressing Canada's Jewish community. Tonight at sundown marks the beginning of Passover. Usually, this is a time for family and friends to gather around the Seder table. But tonight will truly not be like all other nights. I know staying in tonight and not gathering extended family will be hard, but it's the best way to keep yourselves and your loved ones safe. I hope you still find a way to connect with family and friends, whether it be on the phone or through video chat. To all those celebrating Passover, Chag Pesach Sameach. Over the past few weeks, we've all had to make changes because of this pandemic. Staying indoors as much as possible and not seeing friends and family is a big adjustment for everyone, but it's especially hard for some people. If you've lost your job, if you work in an industry that's been hit hard by this virus, you're worried about your family and your future. What makes the situation so difficult is how quickly it all happened. Through no fault of your own, your whole world has been turned upside down in a matter of weeks, and that can create even more uncertainty and even more anxiety. So we've brought in a whole range of new measures to help families and workers, seniors and business owners get through this. We've put in place a 3-point economic plan. It supports business owners, including through new loans, while helping those who no longer have a paycheck through the CERB, and protecting jobs with the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. I know many of you are anxious to see this subsidy delivered. We're calling on the opposition to join us in bringing the House back to pass legislation so you can get the support you need as soon as possible. Cabinet will be meeting this afternoon. As usual, most Cabinet members will be on the phone, and I will be attending this one in person to discuss next steps. Depuis qu'on a annoncé la subvention salariale, on a eu beaucoup de conversations avec les gens d'affaires, des syndicats et des travailleurs. Je veux les remercier pour leurs conseils et leurs perspectives. Ces conversations nous ont aidés à adapter ce qu'on avait annoncé de façon à inclure un plus grand nombre d'entreprises et à aider plus de gens. Et c'est ce dont je veux vous parler aujourd'hui. On avait dit que les entreprises devaient démontrer que leurs revenus avaient baissé de 30% ce mois-ci par rapport à l'année précédente pour recevoir la subvention. On reconnaît que pour les organismes à but non lucratif, les entreprises à croissance rapide comme les start-up et les nouvelles entreprises, ça peut poser problème. Donc, on va assouplir ces conditions. D'abord, les entreprises devront démontrer une baisse de 15% de leurs revenus pour le mois de mars, plutôt que 30%, pour tenir compte qu'en général, la pandémie a eu des conséquences sur leurs activités à la mi-mars. Les entreprises pourront également choisir d'utiliser les mois de janvier et février à titre de période de référence pour démontrer une perte de revenus. Pour ce qui est des organismes à but non lucratif et aux organismes de bienfaisance, on comprend que vous faites face à des réalités différentes en matière de financement. Pour cette raison, vous auriez le choix d'inclure ou d'exclure les subventions gouvernementales lorsque vous calculez vos pertes de revenus. Si votre entreprise est touchée par la COVID-19, le gouvernement vous donnera jusqu'à 847 $ par semaine pour chaque employé. Et comme on l'avait annoncé, cette subvention sera rétroactive au 15 mars. Since we announced the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, we've had a number of conversations with stakeholders and workers who've provided us with valuable feedback and helped us refine what we'd put forward. I want to thank them for their input. We want to make these emergency measures as effective and inclusive as we can, so we're listening and making adjustments along the way. We previously announced that to qualify for the subsidy, businesses would have to show a 30% drop in revenues when comparing the month this year to the month the previous year. We recognize that this could be an issue for nonprofits, fast-growing companies like startups, and new businesses, so we're going to put in place more flexible rules. Companies will now have the option of using January and February of this year as reference points to show a 30% loss. And businesses will only need to show a 15% decline in revenue for March instead of 30%, because most of us only felt the impact of COVID-19 about halfway through the month. We understand that charities and nonprofits are experiencing different types of pressures when it comes to funding. For this reason, they will have the choice to include or exclude government funding when calculating loss in revenue. If your company or organization has been impacted by COVID-19, the government will give you up to $847 a week per employee. And as we've said before, this subsidy will be retroactive to March 15th. Our government understands that not all businesses operate the same way, and that's why we're making changes to include as many of you as possible. We will keep listening, but we really hope you will use this help from your country and from your fellow citizens to rehire and pay your workers. If our economy is to get through this, we need businesses to survive and workers to get paid. Job numbers for March will be out tomorrow, and it's going to be a hard day for the country. We're facing a unique challenge, but I know that if we pull together, our economy will come roaring back after this crisis. Au cours des dernières semaines, on a instauré des mesures sans précédent, dont la subvention salariale d'urgence et la prestation canadienne d'urgence pour aider les travailleurs, les familles et les entreprises. Cela dit, certaines personnes ne sont pas admissibles aux prestations qu'on met en place. D'autres ont besoin de plus de soutien. Je pense par exemple aux pigistes, aux professionnels des soins à domicile et à ceux dont les heures de travail ont été réduites à 10 heures par semaine ou moins. On est en train de trouver des solutions et on va vous aider. Nos aînés traversent aussi des moments difficiles ces jours-ci parce qu'ils sont particulièrement vulnérables face à la COVID-19. En même temps, ils s'inquiètent de l'impact de la chute économique sur leurs économies et des dépenses additionnelles à cause de cette crise. On va donc avoir des mesures supplémentaires pour aider nos aînés les plus vulnérables bientôt. Pour ce qui est des étudiants et des jeunes qui s'apprêtent à entrer sur le marché du travail, on va avoir plusieurs mesures pour vous appuyer. Mais ce matin, on commence avec une première étape. To help young people and small businesses affected by COVID-19, we're making changes to the Canada Summer Jobs program this year. We will now give CSJ employers a subsidy of up to 100% to cover the costs of hiring students. We will also extend the time frame for job placement until the winter, because we know that some jobs will start later than usual. And because many businesses have had to scale back their operations, they will be able to hire students part-time. Our government is also encouraging all employers who have been impacted by COVID-19 to make adjustments so work can continue. For example, if you run a local food bank, you may be doing deliveries instead of serving people on site, so you could hire students to help you. We will also be asking MPs across the country to reach out to businesses and organizations providing critical services in their communities to look at how students can help during this critical time. In this economic climate, it's hard for people of all ages to find work, but young people are especially vulnerable. They're new to the workforce, so they don't have a lot of money set aside for this kind of situation. At the same time, they need work experience to secure their next job and money to cover their living expenses and help with tuition for the rest of the year. Today, we're taking a step in the right direction to help young people find work during this difficult time, but I want to be clear, we will be doing more. Just like we will do more for those who need help but are not eligible to receive the benefits we've announced so far. We're also working around the clock to ensure that our frontline workers have everything they need to save lives and stay safe. Overnight, we received 500,000 N95 masks from 3M, and they'll be distributed across the country where they are most needed. I know the past weeks haven't been easy, but we're going to get through this together if everyone keeps following the instructions from public health experts. So please stay home as much as possible. Only go out for essential things like groceries and medications, and try to make that trip once a week or less. And when you do, remember to keep 2 meters from those around you. That's the best way to stay healthy and protect our frontline workers who are doing so much to help all of us. Encore une fois, merci d'être avec nous ce matin. Je suis maintenant heureux de prendre les questions des médias.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now go to the phones for one question, one follow-up. Over to you, operator.
Merci, thank you. The first question is from Heather Caulfield from the Toronto Star. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Could you talk to us about what your plan is to get people back to work efficiently and safely without provoking another outbreak?
What we're seeing around the world is countries are beginning, as we see social distancing measures, as we see people staying home in countries around the world, are now looking at the steps needed to think about easing those social distancing rules to start our economies rolling again. It is very obvious that we need to be very, very careful that all the work we've done over these past weeks and in the coming weeks at staying home, at following the instructions of our public health officials, doesn't become for naught when suddenly spikes happen as we get back to work. So it's going to be very, very important to do it in a measured, graduated way that allows for economic activity to begin while preventing severe spikes in COVID transmission. There is a lot of reflections ongoing on that, but as we know, the current measures will be in place for many more weeks, so we have time to get that right and to look what other countries that might be earlier in their phase do that is successful or less.
And just to follow up on that, I mean, it seems that we do have some time to think about it, but there's also, how do you assess the risk of summertime? I mean, we've been cooped up already for 4 weeks, and people are doing it voluntarily, and as you say, working very well together. But what's the risk of that falling apart as the summertime comes and the good weather is there and people are, in desperate need of some earnings as well?
We will be talking about modeling in the coming days and what various scenarios are. But what is very, very clear is in order to avoid spiking cases, in order to avoid having to stay in reduced economic activity modes for months and months and months and months and months, we need to keep very, very strong in the measures we have now. That is how we get to the best case scenario. And quite frankly, the social distancing and the staying home that Canadians are doing now is exactly the right kinds of things that we need in order to look at the most optimistic models. There is no question that once we start to get to the other side of this spike and are able to talk about easing off social distancing, there will be a need for continual surveillance, continual attentiveness on testing, on contact tracing, on protecting our most vulnerable. That means even as things are able to start getting back to normal, they won't be back to normal. And calibrating that right and understanding that what people are doing now is essential. What they will continue doing now is just as, in the coming weeks, is just as essential. But how we ease off and continue to follow the best directions and instructions of our public health officials will be how we manage to get through this in the best possible way. Okay. Nous reconnaissons que c'est difficile de rester dans une situation d'isolement, rester chez vous pendant cette période-ci. Et on sait qu'on va devoir continuer de le faire pendant encore bien des semaines. Mais pour avoir la meilleure chance d'en sortir le plus rapidement et le plus en santé possible, nous devons rester fidèles à ces mesures qui nous gardent en sécurité. un moment donné, dans quelques mois probablement, quand on sera en train de relâcher les mesures jusqu'à un certain niveau, nous allons devoir encore être extrêmement vigilants sur nos comportements, sur qui peut retourner au travail, pour s'assurer qu'on ne fasse pas face à une nouvelle épidémie ou, encore pire, qu'on ait fait tout ce qu'on est en train de faire pendant ces semaines-ci pour rien et on se retrouve avec un gros problème au pays. Donc, on est en train de regarder attentivement comment pouvoir passer aux prochaines phases, mais c'est sûr qu'on est encore très ancré dans cette phase-ci, qui veut dire que nous allons rester chez nous le plus possible. Nous allons continuer à garder cette distanciation.
Thank you. Operator, next question, please.
Merci, thank you. The next question is from Alfia Raj, HuffPost Canada. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you explain why the government chose not to make relief payments simple, inclusive, and universal? You know, we're hearing from a lot of people who are excluded from the measures that you've announced, including the ones this week for a variety of reasons. Now, one of your MPs is telling people who have some income not to take the attestation for the Canada Emergency Relief Benefit so literally. There's another expert telling self-employed workers not to invoice for 14 days in order to qualify, which to me sounds pretty unethical. Why did you decide against, for example, sending $2,000 payments to all Canadians and to claw them back from those who don't need them next year?
We recognize that we needed to do things quickly and we needed to do things robustly in a way that would allow our extraordinary public servants at Canada Revenue Agency and elsewhere to be able to put in a system that would reach the largest number of Canadians who needed it as possible. We looked at many different designs and we even iterated in the designs that we put forward, but we established that the Canada Emergency Response Benefit was a way of replacing income to the largest number of people who suddenly found themselves without a paycheck, and that the wage subsidy at 75% was going to be able to keep people connected to their jobs and ensure that businesses continued to exist so that they can come back quickly afterwards. We recognize that any time you put out large measures quickly and in a way that is solid enough to be certain that it's going to work through the machine, there are going to be gaps. And what we've talked about over these past days is ways of filling those gaps and making sure that more people who are in exceptional or different circumstances are able to access the help we need. And we will continue to have more to say on that in the coming days. Okay. Quand nous voulons aider le plus grand nombre de gens possible, le plus rapidement possible, il faut nécessairement prendre des mesures qui sont très larges et très robustes, parce que nous avons besoin de livrer ces prestations au plus grand nombre de gens possible de façon extrêmement résiliente dans un système qui n'a pas été créé pour faire ça ni rapidement, ni aussi grandement que c'est en train d'être fait. Alors, c'est les choix que nous avons faits avec la prestation, avec le supplément pour les travailleurs, mais nous reconnaissons aussi qu'il y a des gens, même si des millions de gens vont les recevoir, il y a des gens dans des situations particulières qui ne vont pas pouvoir accéder à ces programmes-là. C'est pourquoi on est constamment en train de raffiner, de regarder ces exceptions, de trouver des moyens de donner l'aide dont les gens ont besoin. On reconnaît que on ne peut pas avoir un système parfait dans une situation sans précédent. On n'essaie pas de viser la perfection. On essaie d'aider le plus de gens possible, le plus rapidement possible. Et c'est pour ça qu'on a constamment des nouvelles choses à annoncer pour pouvoir aider plus de gens.
And a follow-up out there?
But with respect, if your goal is to help the widest number of people, to make this as broad as possible, and you're defending it by saying that you needed to have big, bold action, wouldn't the big, bold action be to send everybody help as opposed to rolling out week by week new changes, revised versions of programs in order to fix the gaps that apparently are just coming to the government's attention. That way you wouldn't have people who maybe, 6, 7, 8 weeks without any income at all?
We knew from the very beginning that we had to make a choice, whether we get big programs out quickly to as many people as possible, or else we figure out how to refine them and get the right things to people. We made it a double process, a two-program process writ large, where, yes, millions of Canadians will receive the $2,000 every month with the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. But we also know that there are many Canadians who are middle class, for whom $2,000 a month might not be even nearly enough to cover their needs right now because of various costs, because of various issues that they're facing, which is why we wanted to bring in a 75% wage subsidy that will give them, instead of just $500 a week, up to $847 a week. That is more generous for people who need it, but it is still a significant pay cut for everyone. We understand this is a situation that is difficult for everyone. We modeled ourselves these programs on a collection of programs that worked in different ways in different countries, and we're confident that we came up with the right measures to help most Canadians. But as I said, there are people we recognize need particular help or don't quite fall into those categories, and that's very much what we're working on now and have been announcing over the past few days in terms of measures that we're bringing in for people who work less than 10 hours a week, for example, who will still qualify for the CERB. These are the kinds of things we're continuing to work on.
Thank you. Next question, operator.
Thank you, merci. La prochaine question est de Émilie Bergeron de l'agence QMI. Votre ligne est ouverte. À vous la parole.
Oui, bonjour, M. Trudeau. La question pour la subvention salariale d'attente de 3 à 6 semaines, si je comprends bien, ça n'a pas changé. Plusieurs entreprises trouvent que c'est trop long comme délai. Qu'est-ce que vous leur répondez?
Nous travaillons extrêmement fort pour essayer de raccourcir ces délais. Nous visons le 3 semaines et j'espère qu'on va pouvoir le faire en 3 semaines. Mais évidemment, nous avons des gens de la fonction publique qui ont travaillé extrêmement fort pour livrer la prestation canadienne d'urgence. On a vu déjà aujourd'hui des millions de Canadiens sont en train de recevoir leur argent. Ça a été un travail extraordinaire par des gens qui font face à la même pandémie, à la même situation pour leur famille, pour leur communauté que d'autres, mais qui ont pu travailler de façon extraordinaire pour livrer cette prestation. Et maintenant, ils se tournent vers cette subvention salariale et on vise de pouvoir livrer ce programme-là dans 3 semaines, peut-être même plus tôt si tout va bien, mais on reconnaît que c'est des nouvelles choses, que c'est du jamais fait dans notre société, dans notre gouvernement, et on est confiant qu'on va pouvoir le livrer bientôt. Okay. We recognize that this is a significant task, but we know that businesses who are making decisions to rehire are stretched thin and need to know that money is going to come in soon from the government. That's why we are aiming for 3 weeks in terms of landing the wage subsidy, getting it to Canadian businesses. It will require continued Herculean efforts by our public servants, particularly the Canada Revenue Agency, who have done extraordinary work over these past weeks to deliver the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. And as we've seen, millions of Canadians are beginning to receive that as of today. This was an unbelievable effort by people who, quite frankly, are facing the same challenges, the same pandemic, the same family issues and worries that the rest of us are facing, but stayed focused on delivering help for Canadians because this was so important at this time. And now they are going to turn their energies and efforts towards delivering the wage subsidy, which, as I said, we hope to see within the next 3 weeks. But that is something that we're going to continue working on extremely hard. And that's one of the reasons why we are so eager to to see Parliament pass the legislation necessary, and I'm certainly hoping that the opposition parties will join me in moving quickly to get this through so we can get help to Canadians.
And suivi?
Justement, par rapport au retour du Parlement, vous l'avez dit hier, la subvention salariale, ce programme-là doit être approuvé en Chambre. Qu'est-ce qui tarde dans les négociations avec les partis d'opposition sur ce retour-là temporaire de la Chambre?
On parle de mesures qui sont une mesure qui sera la plus grande dans l'histoire du gouvernement canadien. On a besoin d'avoir la participation et l'implication des partis d'opposition pour passer cette législation, mais aussi pour l'étudier, pour s'assurer que c'est la bonne façon d'aider les Canadiens. On sait qu'ils ont des questions, on est en train de travailler avec eux, on espère pouvoir travailler de façon collaborative parce que, en fin de compte, c'est de l'aide aux Canadiens que tout le monde est d'accord qu'il faut envoyer et on va travailler ensemble pour avoir la bonne façon de le faire. Okay. We recognize that these measures are the largest measures passed in decades, if not ever, by a Canadian government. That's why our democratic institutions and their democratic processes, including parliamentary oversight, is extremely important. That's why we're working with opposition parties to ensure that this legislation gets passed quickly but properly so that we can get this help to Canadians in the best possible way.
Thank you. One more call, please, operator.
Next question is from Brett Forster, APTN. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Prime Minister. With various First Nations calling for military assistance, at what point does the military agree to go help? Is it number of cases? Is it deaths? Is it per capita? What's the threshold for answering some of these calls for help?
Obviously, we are very concerned with the situation in First Nations communities across the country. Indigenous communities in general, particularly remote and northern ones, are more vulnerable because they often have difficult circumstances, including difficulty around healthcare. So we recognize that is something we need to focus on. Decisions on how to best help, first of all, we've already allocated millions of dollars to community support programs in Indigenous communities. As for further assistance or military assistance, that will always be made on a case-by-case basis, depending on the individual circumstances and how we can best help as a government. That is what we're always going to be looking at.
And a follow-up?
Yep, thank you. As a follow-up, we know, as you say, these communities really are petri dishes. And for example, Yabamatong and the Anishinaabe Nation Grand Chief have been asking for other resources in lieu of military aid. What's your response to some of their calls to action?
My response to Grand Chief Fiddler and others is really to make sure that yes, we're there and we want to help. I know Minister Miller and others have been engaging directly with leadership across Canada to ensure that what is needed is worked on together. We recognize the particular and in some cases significant needs of, in many cases, significant needs of Indigenous communities, and that is something that we are working on together. Okay. Nous reconnaissons que nos communautés autochtones sont particulièrement vulnérables à la COVID-19. C'est pour ça que nous continuons de travailler avec eux. On a fait des investissements directs pour ces communautés-là déjà, mais il y a toujours plus qu'on peut et qu'on doit faire. Et on est en train de travailler avec le leadership. Le ministre Miller et d'autres travaillent directement avec eux pour s'assurer qu'ils ont les outils pour prévenir la COVID-19 et pour répondre si jamais ils ont des cas.
Philippe Vincent Foisy de Radio-Canada. Monsieur Trudeau, vous avez dit que votre prestation universelle n'est pas parfaite. Vous le reconnaissez vous-même. Mais pourquoi elle n'est pas plus simple? Pourquoi vous n'avez pas décidé d'envoyer un chèque à tout le monde et demander des remboursements sur un mécanisme qui existe déjà avec l'assurance-emploi, qui est du 50% remboursé par dollar gagné? Pourquoi vous n'avez pas fait ça le plus simple possible pour que les gens, maintenant, tout le monde, aient de l'argent et que personne tombe dans les trous?
Il y a beaucoup de gens qui ne qualifient pas pour l'assurance-emploi. Il y a plusieurs systèmes qu'on a regardés. Il y a différentes façons qu'on a cherché pour aider les gens. On a décidé que la prestation canadienne d'urgence, c'était le meilleur moyen pour aider des millions de personnes. Mais comme on a dit, on reconnaît qu'il y a des gens qui travaillent juste quelques heures par semaine qui devraient avoir accès à cette prestation. Et on est en train de faire des modifications pour cela. On reconnaît différentes personnes dans d'autres situations, comme les étudiants, par exemple, qui font face à de vrais défis pour leurs emplois d'été, pour leur emploi à temps partiel, qui ont besoin de cet argent pour payer leur loyer, pour retourner aux études à l'automne. C'est pour ça qu'on est en train continuellement de regarder d'autres façons d'aider. Mais la prestation canadienne d'urgence et la subvention salariale, ensemble, vont aider des millions et des millions de Canadiens, de travailleurs canadiens qui font face à des moments difficiles. On va continuer à travailler pour aider les gens les plus vulnérables. Okay. We recognize that the two measures we've put forward, the wage subsidy and the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, will help millions of Canadians. But at the same time, we also recognize there are people who will not qualify for either and who need help. That's why we've announced certain modifications already. If you're working less than 10 hours a week, we will be telling you how you can apply for the CERB. If you're a student, for example, on top of the Canada Summer Jobs program that we talked about today, we will bring forward more measures because we recognize that without your summer job, without a source of income over the coming months, including part-time work, you will have trouble paying your rent, you will have trouble paying for your tuition next year. So these are the things that we're continuing to work on. We just needed to get the two big measures that would help millions of Canadians out as quickly as possible and chose to work on refining them later. There is always a fundamental choice to make in a crisis around whether you want to move fast or whether you want to get everything absolutely perfect. In this case, we understood that getting help out to Canadians as quickly as possible in a way that is as solid as possible was extremely important, and we continually work in terms of making sure we're getting people who find themselves in gaps.
Mais vous dites, M. Trudeau, que vous voulez que ça soit rapide. Mais pourquoi ce n'est pas plus rapide pour les gens qui ne se qualifient pas à la prestation d'urgence, pour la subvention salariale qui va prendre encore plusieurs semaines? Et juste peut-être comprendre sur vous personnellement, vous allez au cabinet tantôt, donc est-ce que votre isolement, votre télétravail, c'est terminé?
Mon télétravail va continuer. Je vais rester à la maison pour la plupart des choses, mais maintenant, je vais pouvoir de temps en temps, pour des rencontres stratégiques ou importantes, me rendre au Parlement pour faire un peu de travail, mais en général, je vais continuer à travailler d'ici à la maison sur le téléphone.
In English, please.
Okay. I will continue to work from home day in and day out, as we're asking most Canadians to do. There will be moments for strategic meetings or particular issues where I will go into the office for meetings, taking all proper precautions, but most of my work will continue to be from home on the telephone.
Marika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. For the past 2 weeks, you've been saying that the models that Canada will release are coming in the coming days. When will they actually be released?
We've seen over the past few days a number of provinces putting forward more data and more modeling on their issues. At the federal level, we continue every single day to put forward updated numbers to be fully transparent with Canadians on the national picture. But in order to have a national picture in terms of modeling and forecasts, we need to draw on what the provinces are doing, what modeling work they're doing. Provinces have been releasing this week much more information around their models, and as we collate those and look at those and integrate those into a national model, we will have more to say in the coming days. Nous reconnaissons que les gens veulent savoir combien de temps ça va durer, à quel niveau de décès on pourrait s'attendre. On est en train, évidemment, à tous les jours de publier sur le site canada.ca des chiffres, des données de façon transparente et rassemblées de partout au pays pour avoir des images de ce qui se passe à travers le pays. En même temps, on reconnaît que plusieurs provinces ont cette semaine partagé des modèles, des prévisions pour l'avenir. Si on veut partager un modèle ou une prévision qui sera réellement nationale, il va falloir qu'on rassemble un petit peu ces informations, ces prévisions des différentes provinces et nous allons le faire d'ici les prochains jours.
So is it more reasonable to say that it would be in the coming weeks then at this point? And the Conservatives are calling for a daily question period with the return to Parliament. Do you support that?
I think it's extremely important that Parliament continues to do its work, particularly in a time of crisis. It is going to be extremely important that we gather to pass important legislation to allow Canadian businesses and workers to be helped by the wage subsidy. These are things that we're gathering for and working together on. I think that as we asked the Speaker a number of days ago, we should look at gathering a virtual Parliament. I think it's important that parliamentarians from every corner of the country, not just those within driving distance of Ottawa, should be able to weigh in on the working of our democracy. That's why we're looking at virtual models of doing that. In terms of my own engagement, I'm happy to take questions every day, and I'm happy to work with parliamentarians as I take questions every day, as I do here from media. But I'm also happy to work with parliamentarians to make sure that we're continuing to get accountability and get the measures right for Canadians. I believe deeply in our democratic institutions, particularly in a time of crisis, and I look forward to continuing to work with all opposition parties to make sure that we have working systems in place. Okay. Nous reconnaissons à quel point c'est important d'avoir une démocratie qui fonctionne, des institutions qui sont encore au travail pendant un moment de crise. Donc, nous allons rassembler le Parlement dans les jours à venir pour passer un projet de loi pour aider les travailleurs avec cette subvention salariale. Et nous avons demandé il y a plusieurs jours au président de la Chambre des communes de regarder des façons de se rassembler de façon virtuelle. Parce qu'il me semble que ce n'est pas tout à fait juste que seulement les parlementaires qui peuvent venir en proximité d'Ottawa participent à notre institution. On voudrait créer des modalités plus virtuelles pour que tous les parlementaires soient là et on va continuer ces discussions avec les autres partis. Par rapport à moi, je suis très content de prendre des questions des médias tous les jours et je suis tout à fait ouvert à prendre des questions régulièrement d'autres partis aussi. On va suivre des discussions là-dessus.
Prime Minister Tom Parry with CBC News. I know you're going to be talking about your modeling in the coming days, but from what you've seen, do you have any idea when the virus is going to peak nationally? And also, are you concerned about the virus coming in waves that Canadians are going to be dealing with for many months?
Excellent question, Tom. I think we are very much trying to figure out where we are on the curve within the various models. What is very, very clear is there are significant differences across the country in where various provinces are on their own curves. Overall, as a country, I can say we have reached the point where we are later than many other countries. So we have a glimpse into what is effective and what is working to bend those curves in other countries that we are doing now. Our social distancing over the past weeks and staying at home has been very effective. And regardless of the model in place, it is clear that the best outcomes come when there is maximal social distancing, as we are pretty close to doing right now, as we ramp up testing, because that's an important piece of it, and we're continuing to do more testing every single day, and as we do aggressive contact tracing to ensure that people who are possibly exposed are put into self-isolation. These kinds of things are what give us the best chance of getting there. We don't know exactly when we're going to be peaking, but we do know if we continue to do this, if we continue to keep the measures in place that we have right now, we will get through this much, much quicker. Once we are through this initial phase, we will then be in a mode until there is a vaccine, which could take many, many months, if not more than a year, to get to. We will be calibrating very carefully our behaviors as a country, as a society, as an economy, to managing the existence and persistence of COVID-19. Better testing, careful isolation of vulnerable communities, measures of gradually bringing back the economy will come. So if there are spikes, as the data and documentation tells us that we can expect, we are quickly able to adjust and react. So none of those spikes over the coming many months that are possible will be anything as serious as this one. But in order to do that, we have to keep following medical advice, knowing that what Canadians are doing right now, staying home, keeping 2 meters apart, not going out unless you absolutely have to, is what is getting us through this and will ensure that, that Canadians are kept as safe as possible and our economy comes back as quickly and as strongly as possible. So let's keep doing what we're doing. Juste sur quel aspect? Le pic, oui. Nous savons que les mesures que nous sommes en train de faire sont en train d'être les bonnes mesures. On a vu avec d'autres pays qui sont plus à l'avance de nous par rapport à cette pandémie que ces mesures sont la meilleure façon de réduire l'impact et la durée de cette pandémie. Nous allons continuer de rester dans notre situation de contrôle que nous avons maintenant. On ne sait pas exactement quand le pic viendra, mais on sait qu'il viendra si on continue à garder le cap sur les mesures qu'on a maintenant. Et dans les mois et l'année à venir, c'est possible qu'après qu'on passe cette phase-ci du virus, on ait une résurgence ici et là du virus au Canada. Mais on va avoir des mesures pour, j'espère, mieux contrôler et tamiser et réduire l'impact de ces petits moments plus difficiles à quelques endroits. Alors, c'est par rapport à ça qu'on est en train de travailler pour partager nos prévisions dans les jours à venir.
Hi, Prime Minister. Kevin Gallagher, CTV National News. As you spoke about the importance of testing for these models and numbers we're talking about, are you at all concerned that Canada's most populous province has the lowest per capita rate in terms of testing, but also, according to reports, is falling well short of Ontario's own testing goals? So what more can the federal government do? Why hasn't the federal government stepped in to increase testing in Ontario and in other provinces?
We're working very closely with all provincial health authorities to ensure that they have the equipment and the ability to do as many tests as possible. This is an essential part of getting through this phase of the pandemic and indeed keeping us out of further phase or minimizing further phases of the pandemic over the coming many months. We continually do more testing every single day in this country. We're already doing better than many countries in the world that we compare ourselves to. But at the same time, we recognize there's more to do. We will continue to work with jurisdictions that are facing challenges, and we will work together to make sure that we're doing what is needed right across the country to keep Canadians safe.
Prime Minister Janet Silver, Global News. Public Health Canada told the government in early February more resources for local public health officials were needed to contain the outbreak and enforce a quarantine order. Why did the federal government not act at that time to do more to bolster resources and to stop the spread?
We recognized early on that this was a challenge, and we did take many measures to try and control or prevent or ensure that Canada was less vulnerable to the spread of COVID-19 that we were seeing elsewhere in the world. With hindsight, I'm sure there are lots of things that we would have done differently, could have done differently, but I can tell you that every step of the way, we took the advice of our medical professionals and our public health experts seriously and did as best as we could. Obviously, once this is all through, there will be many, many people reflecting on different countries' responses and what we need to do to ensure that we are even better prepared next time. It was something we certainly did and benefited from because of the SARS outbreak of 2003 that allowed us to have a number of measures in place that were more effective than some other countries. But at the same time, there's always more to learn and more to do.
And an Ipsos poll is out today for Global News that shows 1/4 of Canadians report they are still not strictly following physical distancing. And cities are also logging thousands of complaints from residents about people flouting the rules. I'm just wondering, do you have any tools that you're willing to use to crack down on these people?
I think one of the things that we have to recognize in this situation is that much of the ability of Canada and of Canadians to get through this in as short amount of time as possible and as healthy as possible requires citizens to be doing their part. And we see millions upon millions of Canadians following the instructions of Health Canada officials, of their public health officials, in terms of social distancing, in terms of staying at home, in terms of not going out unless they actually have to, absolutely have to, of doing everything they can to keep our frontline workers, from grocery store cashiers to surgeons, as safe as we possibly can. These are the things that Canadians are doing. Unfortunately, we do see that there are some people who are not choosing to follow these instructions, and they're putting everyone else at risk. And we continue to impress upon everyone that we need to do what is necessary to get through this as quickly and as safely as possible. We will continually work with jurisdictions, with cities, with provinces on new measures or extra measures that they feel are necessary. As it goes, we're continually monitoring what is needed and what we might need to do as next steps. Merci tout le monde. Bonne journée.